When a federal judge blocked Trump's border order, he didn't tweet. He walked straight into the fire. No podium. No press conference. Just a leather chair creaking softly as Donald Trump leaned back in the Oval Office, his eyes fixed on the TV above the fireplace. The news ticker hadn't changed in 30 minutes. Federal judge blocks deportation order. Trump administration held in contempt. He didn't blink. Across the room, Caroline Driscoll, his press secretary, stood near the door, gripping her iPad like a riot shield. She knew better than to interrupt the silence. James Boasberg, Trump finally said, voice flat. He thinks he's running the country now. Caroline stepped forward. Judge Boasberg's ruling cites the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. I know what it cites, Trump snapped, not loud, but sharp enough to cut the air. He dug up the oldest, dustiest statute he could find, wrapped it in modern outrage, and called it justice. On the coffee table sat a thick binder filled with annotated immigration policies, border maps, court transcripts, every page marked in red. Trump stood. They are daring me to act out. Daring me to cross a line so they can scream, dictator, on TV for the next 5 weeks. Pam Bondi entered from the hallway, dark navy suit, no jewelry, notepad in hand, the look of someone who'd been through worse and won. It's not just El Pozo anymore, she said. Boasberg's ruling is already grounding flights from Phoenix, Tucson, Brownsville. ICE is scrambling. Trump's jaw tensed. We enforce immigration law and they call it a constitutional crisis. Pam flipped her notes. He accused us of acting in bad faith. Use those words. On record. They are prepping contempt proceedings. Trump turned to the window, staring past the south lawn, past the cameras and the press. For a second, he wasn't watching, he was calculating. Contempt, he repeated, almost amused. They used to say that when I tweeted. Now they say it when I secure the border. Caroline finally spoke. If we go quiet, the media writes the story for us. Good, Trump said. Let them write. He turned back into the room, voice rising. We'll give them something worth writing about. Pam raised an eyebrow. Meaning? I'm not letting a bench of cloaked activists override the people who put me here. If Roberts wants to protect that system, he can defend it, publicly. Caroline's breath caught. You want to address the court? Trump didn't answer. Instead, he pulled a folded printout of Boasberg's order from the desk drawer and held it up like evidence. Let's see if they still believe in transparency with the cameras on. Pam exhaled. You're calling them out. Live. Every last one of them, Trump said. Starting with John Roberts. If he thinks this is about process, he hasn't been paying attention. You'll be accused of politicizing the bench, Caroline warned. I'm not politicizing it, Trump said. I'm exposing it. The American people didn't vote for federal judges. They voted for a president. I won't let the system turn into a courtroom monarchy. Pam nodded slowly. Then we'd prepare for a storm. Trump gave the faintest smile. Let it come. What started in a courtroom was about to erupt on the national stage. No tweets. No anonymous aides whispering behind closed doors. Just a one-page PDF uploaded to the Supreme Court's official site at 9:03 a.m. By 9:07, every phone and newsroom in America was lit up with the same headline. Chief Justice Roberts responds to Trump's call for impeachment. Pam Bondi read it twice before handing it to Caroline. This isn't a defense, she said quietly. It's a warning. Caroline scanned the page. Roberts's words were calm. Clinical. Impeachment is not an appropriate response to legal disagreement. The judiciary must remain independent, even when rulings are unpopular or inconvenient. Trump wasn't in the Oval. He was in the Roosevelt Room with Senator Felix Morton and DHS Deputy Director Carl Hickden. Both had cleared their schedules. His posturing, Morton said, flipping a pen in his hand. Trying to remind America that courts are sacred. Trump sipped his coffee. Sacred. They've turned it into a battlefield. Carl leaned in. Boasberg's order wasn't review. It was sabotage. They are blocking policy before it even lands. Trump nodded. And now Roberts wants to hide behind tradition. Like the road makes him untouchable. He stood. A movement that silenced the room. This isn't about policy anymore. It's about power. Pam entered quietly, placing the statement in front of him. Trump didn't need to read it. He already knew the tone. Roberts never shouts, he said. He buries you in sentences designed to sound eternal. What's the angle? Morton asked. Caroline had already joined them. Media will call it unity. Leadership. But the base sees it for what it is, deflection. They want to give judges veto power, Trump said. They don't want to win elections. They want to block whoever does. He walked to the fireplace, same one presidents had stared into since Roosevelt. We gave them years. Panels, speeches, commissions. Now I act, and they scream tyranny. Pam crossed her arms. What's your play? Trump turned to them, not like colleagues, but like soldiers. They want rulings. We'll give them cameras. Morton raised an eyebrow. You're serious? I want a live session. Roberts across from me. The American people watching. No footnotes. No redactions. I want faces. I want accountability. Carl hesitated. You think they'll agree? They won't have a choice, Trump said. We'll frame it as a national summit. A legal forum on judicial restraint. They say they want transparency. Let's test it. Caroline was already typing. Media will flood it. If Roberts refuses, he looks like he's hiding. This breaks every precedent, Morton said. So did that judge, Trump replied, holding Boasberg's order like a challenge. Pam exhaled. Then we need a name. Trump thought for a moment. Call it the National Judicial Reform Summit. Caroline looked up. At the Supreme Court. No, Trump said. Inside the Supreme Court. Silence. The implication hit like thunder. This wasn't a speech. It was a confrontation. One branch against another, Felix muttered. They wanted a fight behind closed doors, Trump said. I'm dragging it into the light. The official invitation went out at midnight. No leaks. No hints. Just an email from the President's office, sealed and addressed to the Supreme Court. You are formally invited to participate in the National Judicial Reform Summit, to be held live and on record within the Supreme Court chamber. The purpose, public discourse on judicial authority, nationwide injunctions, and constitutional balance. By 8 a.m., the country had exploded. CNN, an audacious move. Fox, Trump demands accountability. MSNBC, a dangerous stunt. But no one could ignore it. Chief Justice John Roberts read the invitation in silence. No press release. No tweet. He met with Justices Young, Salazar, and Ketanji Brown Jackson in a private room. Young frowned. He wants a televised confrontation. This has never been done. He's not asking, Salazar muttered. He's daring us to say no. Jackson leaned in. Do we ignore it? Dismiss it? Meet privately. Roberts laid the invitation flat on the table. If we refuse, he said, we hand him the narrative. That we are hiding. That we are afraid. Young shook her head. This isn't a forum. It's a trap. Roberts looked up. Then we walk into it with our heads held high. We'll go in clear-eyed and controlled. He's coming for spectacle. We'll respond with civility. That's the line we draw. But across town, in a room lined with flags and maps, Trump was preparing something else entirely. We are not just showing up, he told his team. We are staging a reckoning. The summit would be historic. Cameras permitted. Every word recorded. 2 lecterns, one under the Supreme Court seal, the other beneath the eagle of the presidency. Carolyn, on her third coffee, typed fast. Over 200 media requests in 3 hours. Foreign outlets begging for access. Pam Bondi combed through the security outline. We'll need marshals, Capitol Police, Secret Service, full coverage. This isn't just politics. It's national theater. Felix Morton stepped in, holding a folded copy of the Roberts statement. He's agreed to come. He's bringing 3 justices. No prepared remarks, he wants to speak off script. Trump smiled, not amused, but focused. Perfect. The more unfiltered, the better. Carolyn looked up. What's the endgame? Trump leaned on the table edge. To shatter the illusion. They've hidden behind robes and rituals so long they think they are untouchable. The people need to see them not as ideals, but as fallible. Pam paused. What if they turn it back on you? Say you're the tyrant. Trump didn't blink. Let them. The difference is, I answer to voters. They answer to no one. The setup moved quickly. By nightfall, Capitol crews installed lights in the chamber. The lecterns were placed. Mics tested. Secret Service cleared the perimeter. Outside, reporters staked out sidewalk spots, tripods, chairs, coffee. Protesters lined both fences. One group chanting for judicial restraint. The other waving flags, let the people govern. At 10 p.m., Trump stood alone in the East Room, scanning notes. No speechwriters touched them, just his thoughts, his warnings. Felix entered quietly. We good for tomorrow? Trump didn't look up. Better than good. He closed the folder. Tomorrow, the country hears what it was never meant to. But no one expected what he would say. The Supreme Court had never seen it, a sitting president, face to face with the Chief Justice, not through filings or aides, but in the court itself, cameras rolling, the nation fixed to its screens. At 11 a.m. sharp, Trump entered from the East Corridor. No teleprompter. No polished script. Just a leather folder and a stare that didn't move. He didn't wave. He didn't nod. He walked to his podium like he'd done 100 times before, alone, direct, with something to deliver. Across from him, Chief Justice Roberts sat poised, flanked by Justices Young, Salazar, and Jackson. His hands folded. Posture straight. Calm and still. The whir of press cameras echoed faintly around the chamber. Live feeds flicked on Fox, CNN, MSNBC, Independence, all carried the same banner, Judicial Summit, Live. Trump scanned the room. Then began. When I swore to defend this country, I didn't expect to stand here, not against enemies abroad, but silence robed in ritual. A pause. But here we are. He lifted a folded paper. A judge blocked us from deporting threats, based on laws older than any of us here. When we enforced anyway, because law should outlast opinion, we were accused of overreach. He raised the order from Boosberg. This isn't law. It's leverage. Roberts didn't flinch. Trump pressed on. Now they say, wait, appeal, obey procedure. But how long do we wait while courts block policy before it starts? How many injunctions till voters see nothing from the ballots they cast? His voice stayed steady, controlled, but sharp. This nation wasn't built for 700 unelected lawyers to govern from the shadows. He turned toward Roberts. Chief Justice, I say this with respect for your office, not your view. When the people cry out, and the courts go quiet, that's not balance. That's surrender. Roberts leaned forward, adjusting his glasses. Then spoke, even and precise. Mr. President, with all respect, this institution does not echo public mood. It tempers it. Courts are not engines for stalled agendas. They are not weapons of political urgency. Trump didn't interrupt. He stood, arms crossed, eyes fixed. Roberts continued. You speak of overreach. But this court has reviewed executive action since Marbury versus Madison. That's not rebellion. That's our responsibility. He leaned back slightly. The judiciary is not the threat to the Constitution, Mr. President. It is the safeguard. Trump stepped forward. Then why does it feel like it only safeguards one side? The room held still. No gasp, no applause, just that thick, brittle silence when something hits too close, too deep. He opened his folder, pulled out a printed copy of the Declaration of Independence. The cameras zoomed in. Every network sharpened its focus. This document didn't create kings. It dismantled them. He looked down, then back up. And if we allow judges to make national decisions in isolation, without election, without consequence, we haven't just lost balance. We've lost the republic. He let Judge Boasberg's injunction fall to the floor. Let it hit. Let it hang in the air. They call it judicial review, he said. I call it judicial rule. Roberts flinched. Barely. But enough for millions watching to notice. Trump looked straight into the lens, not at the bench, not at Roberts, the people. You were told the courts protect you. But when one judge can cancel your vote with a single stamp, that's not protection. That's theft. A pause. Then. And today, in this chamber, we are giving that power back. But what followed wasn't applause. It was something heavier. Realization. The room didn't belong to the robes anymore. Elon Musk didn't sit. He stood in the back of the chamber, leaning against the wall like he knew how this would play. He typed a single sentence on X as Trump returned to the podium. A courtroom just became a battlefield. By the time Trump lifted the declaration again, the post had crossed 2 million views. But he wasn't chasing views. He wasn't even chasing applause. He was chasing clarity. And now, he had it. He turned the parchment in his hands. Then said it not to the court, but to the nation. Thomas Jefferson warned us about men in power who wear the mask of virtue while stealing the people's voice. He paused. Then. An oligarchy in robes is still an oligarchy. It didn't matter Jefferson never said those words. It felt like he had. Behind him, Pam Bondi stayed still. She didn't need to speak. Her silence wasn't fear. It was recognition. She knew law. And she knew history when it was being written in real time. Roberts sat like granite. But this time, his jaw was tight. Too tight. Trump stepped back from the parchment. Faced the room. The press. The public. When one unelected judge can block a president from defending the border, that's not balance. That's tyranny with better branding. He bent down, lifted the fallen injunction. This, he said, holding it up. This is one man. Not elected. Never answered to voters. Never had to face the fallout of this decision. He turned to the bench. We had agents ready in McAllen to stop cartel smugglers. And hours after this order, they stood down. Not because the law changed, but because one man typed a sentence into a PDF and hit send. He faced the camera again. They don't want a bench. They want a throne. And this country, he said, will not live under robes pretending they are neutral while blocking everything the voters demanded. Elon glanced at his phone. 2 hashtags were now trending, #benchvote and #courttakeover. Thousands of Americans were commenting. Not just mega faithful. Independents. Even Democrats. It wasn't about party anymore. It was about control. Justice Young leaned toward Roberts, whispering. Roberts didn't respond. Not yet. Trump's voice dropped, not from fatigue, but from intent. I was elected to lead. You don't have to like it. That's democracy. But if unelected judges can erase policies with no vote, no debate, this republic doesn't belong to the people anymore. He looked back to the court. It belongs to the people in this room. Then he pulled a second page from his folder. Blank on one side. On the other, handwritten in thick black ink, underlined twice. He read. Power without accountability is not justice. It's theft. He held it up. Let the words breathe. And that's what this has become. A quiet, careful theft of the people's voice. He dropped at page 2. No cough. No movement. Just silence. Heavy. Sacred. Outside, protest chants roared. Police barriers strained. Reporters clutched phones like lifelines. They didn't know if they were covering a government summit or a revolution. And inside, Trump gave the final words of the day with the same cold precision he'd carried since entering. If Roberts won't fix it, then we will. Legally. Constitutionally. But completely. But the real blow didn't come from the podium. It came from the living rooms, the phones, the country watching. By morning, America didn't wake up uncertain. It woke up decided. Every network replayed the confrontation on loop. Online, clips spread like wildfire, seconds of tension, of a dropped injunction, of a president locking eyes with a chief justice. Talk radio from Bakersfield to Amarillo wasn't about left or right anymore. It was about silence. About power. About someone finally saying it. At 8:02 a.m., Pam Bondi entered the West Wing press room with a stack of folders. "Mr. President," she said, entering the Oval. The reactions louder than we predicted. Trump, already seated, sipped his coffee and flipped a page. "Good," he said, not looking up. "That means they heard it." Carolyn walked in behind her. 20 members of Congress have reached out. Senators too. Some want to co-sponsor legislation right now on injunction reform. Trump didn't hesitate. "Give it a name," he said. "People don't rally around complexity." Pam opened her folder. "We are drafting it now." She smiled. "We are calling it the Judicial Accountability Act." "Perfect, B," Trump said. "Let the courts answer to someone besides themselves." At noon, Senator Felix Morton stood on the Capitol steps and introduced the bill. It proposed stricter guidelines on nationwide injunctions, mandatory review timelines, and public records for any emergency ruling that blocked executive action. Meanwhile, Elon Musk was already ahead. On his X account, he announced the launch of Courtite, a new digital tool that tracked every active federal ruling against executive authority in real time. The map lit up with glowing dots. For the first time, the public could see exactly which judges were blocking which policies. And this wasn't just data, it was names, court profiles, summaries. Users could leave comments. Ratings followed. It was accountability in an era where people assumed the bench was sacred, untouchable. Roberts gave no public response. No press conference. No letter. He returned to his chambers and carried on like it was any other day. But inside the building, something shifted. The tone of Clark whispers changed. Reporters lingered longer at entrances. The mystique around the institution, it cracked. Later that evening, Caroline stood beside Trump, watching a live segment on News Nation. The anchor paused mid-sentence. "We are not just witnessing politics anymore," he said. "This is constitutional course correction." She turned. "You think it'll last?" Trump didn't answer right away. He was staring at the Declaration now hanging on the Oval Office wall, inches from where Obama's mirror once was. "It won't last," he finally said. "Unless we stay louder than the silence." Pam walked in. "The left's already mobilizing. Editorials say this is judicial intimidation. Legal pundits calling it dangerous." "Good," Trump said. "Let them scream. They've been protected by that silence long enough. We didn't break the system. We broke the illusion." Across the country, people responded not with rage, but with pause. Retired factory workers in Ohio. Ranchers in Arizona. A civics teacher in Wichita Falls who printed the speech and had students read it line by line. This wasn't about one party, one case, or one judge. It was about the fear that the people's voice had been taken, not by armies or guns, but by signatures and robes and buildings most citizens never stepped into unless summoned. That fear had a name now. So did the response. Courtite hit 5 million downloads in 72 hours. The Judicial Accountability Act gained support from both sides of the aisle, even from states that hadn't agreed on anything in years. For the first time in over a decade, a Gallup poll showed trust in the federal judiciary had dropped below 35%. But Trump didn't hold rallies. He didn't post victory threads. He just sat at his desk, opened the folder again, and wrote down names. Not enemies. Just reminders. Reminders of what happens when power answers to no one. But for Trump, this wasn't about winning. It was about warning. The storm had passed, but the sky hadn't cleared. Not yet. In living rooms across the country, families were still quiet. Dinner tables still buzzed with questions. Radio hosts still dissected every word of that confrontation. But underneath the noise, something deeper was happening. People weren't just thinking about who won. They were thinking about something they hadn't questioned in years. Who's actually in charge? In a small apartment outside Flagstaff, Arizona, 62-year-old Marlene Cross sat on the edge of her couch, laptop open. She hadn't voted in 2 elections, not because she didn't care, but because she didn't think it mattered. But that night, something shifted. When she watched a sitting president confront the highest court in the land and say their silence had turned into unchecked power, it stirred something. She didn't feel ignored anymore. She felt seen. In a barbershop in Jackson, Mississippi, former Marine Corey Bell watched the clip in silence. When it ended, he turned to the others and said, "That's what I've been trying to explain for years." That right there. The Supreme Court had been the last institution people believed wasn't political. But now Americans were asking, if judges can block a president and never answer to voters, is that still democracy? At a charter school in Yuma, a history teacher held up a printed quote from the speech. She read it aloud. "We are going to dismantle it legally, constitutionally, but completely." Then she asked her class, "What does that mean to you?" A student raised his hand. "That the rules can't protect you if they are only protecting themselves." There it was. The lesson. This confrontation was never just about an injunction or a policy. It was about a government that started answering to itself instead of the people it claimed to serve. For decades, citizens were told courts were neutral, justices wise, robes symbols of balance. But what happens when robes become shields? When neutrality becomes inaction? Trump didn't shout. Didn't point. Didn't gloat. He held up the founding document and asked the one question too many had been afraid to say out loud. Who really runs this country? And the answer wasn't comforting. Because it wasn't clear. Not Congress. Not the president. Not the voters. It was a system so used to silence, so unchallenged for so long, that scrutiny felt like a threat. But it wasn't. It was a reminder. That power belongs to the people. That checks and balances aren't ceremonial. They are real. And when one branch becomes too insulated, too immune, it doesn't matter how old the building is or how polite the language. It's not a republic anymore. It's a throne with guards dressed like judges. Weeks later, someone taped a handwritten note to the marble outside the Supreme Court. It didn't say Trump 2024. It didn't say vote red. It said, "We gave you trust, not immunity." That wasn't a message for Roberts alone. It was for every leader who forgot. America isn't powered by process. It's powered by people. The summit had ended. But the shift had just begun. And it carried one truth. If democracy is real, it doesn't live in robes or rulings. It lives in voices. Loud, imperfect, but free. If you believe this country belongs to the people, speak louder than the silence. Subscribe. Stay aware.